Promptly at 8:30, and it's 8:30 now. Fred Nation, his wife Maureen are from Daphne, Alabama. He's a plants for the first water, and he's going to be talking to us about rhododendron Camomiles and a couple of his recent discoveries. We look forward to your talk, Fred. Woohoo!
I guess I'll disrobe.
Woohoo!
I'm convinced that plant people are the best people in the world. I know you all share that. It's wonderful to be here among kindred spirits. It's also great to be among so many friends I haven't seen in years. So it's a delight to be here. I've been looking forward to it. My wife Maureen, who works at Weeks Bay Reserve, National Estuarine Research Reserve, she has a big plant sale in the fall of the year, so she has more than a passing interest in our proceedings this morning. So, the things that I will talk about this morning are for those among us who believe there may not be anything new under the sun. People who, folks like me, I suppose, who think most of the wonderful things have already been discovered. All the great botanists have lived and died. We're going to take a look at some things that are new. Now they're new in a way. These are new, I say they're new plants, but they've been here for a bazillion years. What's new is our insight. What's new is our knowledge. What's new is people with vision to walk into the woods and see things differently than I see those things when I walk in the woods. Oh, these plants have been there. They have interesting stories to tell. And in the defense of our forebears, the new discoveries in plants were not doable before cytotyping came in, before DNA analysis came in. These are discoveries that belong to our time. The plants belong to the ages. So, with that, see if I can make Charles's thing work here. Hiding in plain sight. 3, not 1 or 2, but 3 new native plants on the Gulf Coastal Plain. So, as I said, they're not new except in a certain sense of the word. They've been here all along. Mushroom folks. Yeah, I'll be kind. Make those fuzzy pictures look a little better, huh? Okay, the first plant I'm going to talk about is a witch hazel. Camomiles Aurealis. That's the new one of the new plants. And it was introduced by a fellow named S.W. Leonard. You know, those of you who are into academia know that the scientific names are really 3 parts. First part's genus, second is species, and the third position is the authority. That's the individual who brought the plant into science, the individual who wrote the first description, published the first account, gave it a name, and brought it into science. And this was a Mississippi botanist named S.W. Leonard. Leonard's witch hazel. Newly, this is not, kind of got a little skew here, a himbo in my screen. Charles, anything we can do about that? The aspect of it's different. It's too.
It's okay. It looks good from here.
Yeah.
It's a lot more noticeable to you, Fred, I think.
Yes, you're close to
Could
me.
be worse than that.
Okay. The account was published in CITA, which is a peer-reviewed journal from Texas in 2006. More about that later. This, for comparison, is our familiar witch hazel. I love to walk up on this plant during field trips, boardwalk tours. because it has such a wonderful story to tell. It's an historic plant, one of the few old herbals that you can still buy in the drugstore. You can still buy witch hazel as an astringent and as a liniment. And also, most importantly, I guess, you can cut a Y-shaped twig out of it and walk witch for water or gold. So, what a wonderful recommendation for a native plant. The leaves are kind of thin, kind of have a little sheen to them. These are the capsules. The capsules will split right here in the summer and late summer and fall and explosively dehiss the seeds out into the woods. It's pretty special. We walk in the woods and hear this little pop. Say it's shoot 20 feet, 25 feet into the woods. How cool is that for a plant to walk up on when you got a field trip to do? So, Camomiles Aurealis, by comparison and contrast, description is a large, sparsely branched, deciduous shrub, 12 to 15 feet tall. That's big, bigger than the other one. The crown is open, irregular, doesn't have very many branches, doesn't seem to have very many leaves. The leaves are alternate, kind of few, to 8 inches long. That's 3 or 4 times the size of the regular witch hazel that we just looked at. 6 inches wide. They're kind of thick. That's also a difference. They're thicker, have a more of a leathery feel to them. Hairy, especially hairy below. They're white, almost white below, especially when they're kind of fresh and new. This is what's really interesting. The flowers of witch hazel, I didn't have pictures of witch hazel on flower because it blooms. These bloom at such a hellish time of the year. The regular witch hazel blooms in December. These are later, and the flowers are red. Imagine a witch hazel with several shades of red flowers. Or if they're not red, they're red and yellow, with the bases of the petals one color and the tips the other color. And they bloom in January, February, which is about a month later than the other witch hazel. The form is similar to Camomiles virginiana, the regular witch hazel, but 1.5 to 2 times bigger. In other words, the flowers are big. This whole plant is like a plant on steroids. Everything about it is big. The capsules are similar. They circumscissile, which means they open around at the equator. They dehiss, which means they blow up, explosively open, 20 to 30 feet in late summer or fall. So that's the description of the thing. We're going to look at some pictures of it, honest. But this is a little more text and reading that I would prefer, and fewer plants, but owing to the topic and the season, we do the best we can. So, this is the United States Department of Agriculture Database, USDA Database, and what they have to say about this new species. Leonard's witch hazel is a species worthy of note for several reasons. First, it's a newly described, new to science. How cool is that? Woody shrub from the southeastern states where conventional wisdom had decreed there were no new species to be discovered. The new species was first noticed in July 2004 when Steve Leonard was conducting botanical surveys on Camp Shelby training site. Leaves 2 to 3 times larger than the common eastern witch hazel caught Steve's attention when he first saw these plants. That's the vision. I have walked past those plants my whole life. I have seen them and I said, boy, that's a big leaf. He had the vision. Leaves 2 to 3 times larger than the common eastern witch hazel caught Steve's attention when he first saw these plants. His first impression of the leaves was how much they resembled hazelnut leaves. Hazelnut leaves have they look a lot like witch hazel leaves. They're a different family, but they have sharp teeth. The teeth on this one are a little bit sharper than a regular plain old garden witch hazel. Not always. The leaves are highly variable, as we'll see. Steve's attention when his first impression was how much they resembled hazelnut leaves in shape and in dentition. The lower leaf surfaces were soft and on new leaves densely white, different from the other one. When he returned in early January to view the flowers, imagine what he must have thought. Another surprise awaited. The flowers were various shades of red. The combination of leaf and flower appearance does not match any known species of witch hazel and convinced Steve to embark on a voyage of discovery that led to the final conclusion that big leaf witch hazel is indeed a new species. The shrub occurs beneath a canopy of pine and mixed deciduous hardwoods. One interesting theory proposed by Steve Leonard is that here that the new species may represent a rediscovery of a lost species of witch hazel, Camomiles macrophylla. Macrophylla means big leaf. That was discovered and offered for sale in 1812 by John Lyon. Where have you seen the name Lyon? About Lyonia. This is the guy for whom Lyonia is named. So it was offered for sale in 1812 by John Lyon, a Scottish nurseryman who made commercial collecting trips as far south as Georgia and Florida. It may be that that was found, sold, lost, and rediscovered. Interesting. There it is. This is an herbarium specimen of Camomiles Aurealis. You see the location section here has been whited out, so people can't get on the internet and take shovels and make this an historic species instead of a current one. The leaves are a little bit more angular. See, many of the edges are flat. The teeth are, on this one, are blunt. Some of the teeth are sharp. Look at the size of that leaf. Three times as big as a Swiss Army knife. That's big. That's not an atypical leaf for this species. Almost round. So, this is the first herbarium specimen that was collected of Camomiles Aurealis. This is called a type specimen. Type specimens are like gold. They're like botanical royalty. Herbaria brag about how many type specimens they have. And this type specimen is the first specimen of this species that was collected. The description was given, which is in the open here. It was given a name. So it's a type specimen. And this is on file at the Missouri Botanical Garden, which is a top 10 herbarium in the world. He sent specimens to FSU and a few other places. But that's botanical royalty, the type specimen of this species. The description, which is required to have a new species, it has to be published in a peer-reviewed journal. This was published in CITA, Contributions to Botany, volume 22, pages 849 in 2006. So, he discovered it, published the account, he collected a specimen, he gave it a name. It is in fact a new species. The largest leaves are 6.7 inches long on this specimen, but they get bigger than that, like the one I showed you on the last picture. So, there they are. They look a little like Lauropetalum. You know why? Because they're in the same, it's the same church, different pew. They're closely related, the same family. That's Lauropetalum fringe flower. These are the flowers, two reds, two species of red, just in the woods. The petals, these are the sepals. These are the petals, tract-like petals. These flowers are 2 or 3 times bigger than the regular Camomiles virginiana. That's in February, early February, probably. February 4th.
Might have been the 5th.
It could have been the 5th. No, the slide, you know how this stuff works now. When you take a picture, you can get on your, and it'll tell you when you took it, what lens you used, and all this stuff. Makes you look like you're well organized when you're not. But anyway, this was probably Clark County, Alabama.
Not Monroe County?
Maybe Monroe County. Could have been the two. A little breakdown of my organization there. Here's the other flower type that you see. Yellow and red. Big, long, strap petals, red to the base, yellow on the outside. Pretty darn different from the one we're used to seeing in the woods. It's frustrating to deal with this species because you have your choice of leaves or flowers, but you don't get to have both. The leaves are gone when it flowers in January and February. So, second species, the second new one that's been lurking in the open. This one has a little different story to tell. Fothergilla, SP. You see that a lot. When you see SP, you know what that means? It means he don't know what it is. See, father species, SP. So, SP. The determination of what it might be is in progress. It's going on in North Carolina State. This is how the little plant looks. I'll show you some other pictures of it. Neat little plant. And more text, unfortunately. American Society of Horticultural Science, August of 2012. Fothergilla is a small genus of uncommon deciduous shrubs found exclusively in the southeastern U.S. Two species of Fothergilla are currently recognized, Fothergilla gardinii and Fothergilla major. However, variation in the genus is considerable, and as many as 4 taxa, 4 species, have been recognized in the past. Fothergilla gardinii is found in the coastal plains of North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, and Alabama, and that's what I thought that was, the one I showed you a minute ago, gardinii. Maybe not. It's tetraploid. The cytotyping, the number of sets of chromosomes that each parent provides to the union in breeding. It can be 1, 2, 3, or 4. That number of chromosomes, the cytotyping, is crucial to reproduction. So it makes a difference. And it also is a good way to separate plants. You see plants that have 2 sets or 3 sets or 4 sets. They've probably been isolated and they're probably somewhat different from the others. You've seen it in things like blueberries, ash trees, trees they make baseball bats out of. Is a multi-cytotype. 2 or 3 or 4 sets of chromosomes in the cell, just depending. Okay. Gardinii is tetraploid. 4 sets of chromosomes. In contrast, Fothergilla major, found on upland sites, that's the big one. The big one you've probably seen in cultivation. North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, and Arkansas. And it's hexaploid, 6 sets. Ploidy. People call this stuff ploidy, the number of ploids, diploid, tetraploid, and so forth. So the objective, no diploid cytotypes of Fothergilla have ever been seen. The objective of this study was to survey the DNA contents and ploidy levels of Fothergilla from throughout its range. Samples from 30, I think it was actually 35, populations were collected and tested. They determined the DNA contents and associated ploidy levels. As expected, they found tetraploid and hexaploid with Fothergilla gardinii and major respectively. However, populations of diploid plants were also discovered in a few locations, considering that diploid plants differ morphologically and they're isolated. You don't see 2s breeding with 3s. You see 2s breeding with 2s. They're cytologically isolated. This little population, the only population in Alabama, turns out to be Fothergilla, maybe not gardinii. Because it's isolated. It's a diploid species stuck way down there in South Alabama. Okay, in a few locations, considering the diploid plants differ morphologically and are isolated, both geographically and psychogenetically, based on their genetic material, based on their chromosomes. From other Fothergillas, this cytotype may represent a new, distinct, and rare taxon. Additional work is continuing to reassess the systematics and phytogeography of Fothergilla in order to elucidate the diversity and evolutionary relationships. In other words, Is it going to be different enough to be another species, or is it going to be like blueberries where you have different ploides, but they're all considered to be the same Vaccinium corybosum, for example? So, we don't know. In progress. They're going to eventually properly classify this new plant to help guide future conservation efforts, because whatever it is, it's really rare. So the description quickly, they're 5 feet tall. That's all it gets to. Branches are stout, stiff. Leaves are thick to 5 inches long, about 3 inches wide. Put these in the auction. So they're going to have a plant sale or an auction. All right. This is Fothergilla SP. Okay. The leaves are glandular. They have little spots on them. Broadest apically towards the tip. They tend to be like water oak, broadest at the tip. Several teeth at the very end that are blunt or sharp. The overall aspect, people comment, say a lot of these leaves look like a duck's foot. Narrow at the base, widening with the toes at the end. That's how these leaves look. Inflorescences are white in late winter, March. They look like a bottle brush. A little bottle brush, 3 or 4 inches long, the inflorescence. Many flowered with dense spikes to 4 inches of bottle brush. Alabama population. The one population is in a sandy pine flatswood. Associates include Pinus elliottii, that's going to say Ilex glabra, and that says Sarracenia rosea, which is the new name for the purple pitcher plant. So it's an acid flatwood. The drier parts of a pitcher plant bog is where you see this. In fact, think of a place, a swamp or a pitcher plant bog where you see Ilex glabra, gallberry everywhere. Think of the same habitat. Instead of gallberry, you have Fothergilla. Why, I don't know, but it's sort of a replacement of one habitat in South Alabama for Ilex glabra. That's the shrub. About 5 feet tall, densely foliaged, many stout branches, good-looking little shrub, and that's about as big as it gets.
Evergreen?
No, it's deciduous, but it's deciduous in a good way. We'll take a look at the way it becomes deciduous in just a minute. That's during the growing season, when nothing reproductive is going on, no foliage to look at except a pretty kind of bluish green foliage. There it is in flower. This is a plant sale. I can tell you these plants walk out of plant sales, especially with the story they have to tell. They're rather interesting looking plants, like a little small bottle brush. There it is. There's kind of the duck foot, the little bottle brush. Leaves are kind of thick, have a soft feel to them. That's in March. Winter. That's the good way. You can still see foliage. It's been a pretty rough winter so far, but they'll lose these. Before they do, they have brilliant fall color, typical brilliant fall color. Fall, October, November. That's in a greenhouse, a shade house. That's all on Fothergilla SP. Last one we'll talk about, I guess this is the pretty face, the one that people really like. Rhododendron colemanii. R. Miller, the third position, is somebody named R. Miller. Common name, Red Hills azalea, a new deciduous azalea. The account for this one that established this was published in the Journal of the American Rhododendron Society in 2008. Mo, do you have that white notebook somewhere?
Yes, it must be in the car.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm saying.
Okay, okay, very good. So, anyway, there's a picture of one of them, just to titillate y'all, introduce the plant. It was published in 2008. I'll talk about that a little more. This is a summary that was presented at a plant conference a couple of years ago. The University of Georgia Center for Continuing Education. Return to Plant Systematics, I guess, was the name of the conference. But anyway, rhododendron colemanii and Ericaceae, that's the heath family, same family as blueberries, rhododendrons, and a whole bunch of other showy ornamental plants. In the southeastern United States, Alvin Diamond and Michael Woods, they're botany professors. Rhododendron colemanii, a species of deciduous rhododendron in section, that should say pentanthera. Pentanthera are the deciduous azaleas. Most azaleas are not deciduous, they're evergreen. But there's 17 or 18 of them that are deciduous. It was described in 2008, commonly known as the Red Hills azalea or Coleman's azalea. It's currently known from the Red Hills region of the upper coastal plain of Alabama and western Georgia. Based on herbarium records and personal collections, it's known from 8 Alabama counties and 3 Georgia counties. Previously, this is kind of key, previously specimens had been identified as Rhododendron alabamense, Rhododendron astrinum, that's the southern flame azalea, Rhododendron canescens, that's the pink one, thank you, that blooms early, that's so fragrant, and Atlanticum, that's the big white one. Or hybrids among those species, either aberrant, mutant examples of those species or hybrids. Well, in addition, photographs and county level distribution maps are provided in the conference. They collected specimens at Troy University. Anyhow, these plants were widely misunderstood, even in the botanical gardens where they had specimens of them and they had them labeled as hybrids. They're not hybrids. A miscellany of colemanii. Just some facts about it. Species was discovered, described, and named by Ron Miller, who is the authority in this species, in the Journal American Rhododendron Society, spring 2008. That's the peer-reviewed publication. Ron Miller is a curmudgeonly, irascible, retired professor of English literature in the University of Florida system, who walked around in the woods, and again, he had the vision, and he looked at these plants and he said, no, these are not hybrids. They're not mutants of other species. These are something else. He collected specimens, sent them off to have the cytotyping done, the DNA analyzed, and they came back absolutely established that this has been there all the time as a separate species of rhododendron. Okay, you know what, I forgot to bring my glasses, but we'll see, we'll muddle through. Anybody ever do that? Just me. Okay, the plants were named, I wonder if any of you all know, the plants were named for S.D. Coleman Sr. by Ron Miller. S.D. Coleman Sr. was a Fort Gaines, Georgia nurseryman who collected, propagated, and distributed these azaleas to southeastern gardeners, including places like Bellingraph and Callaway. They're still there. I'll show you a couple of them that are now huge. Don't know had trouble finding much about Mr. Coleman, except I found a monograph that he published in a horticultural journal in 1959. And in the article, he said he had been a nurseryman for 30 years. So, I'm guessing he is a horticulturist of the past. But he loved these plants. He didn't know what he had, but he didn't have the means to know what he had in his time. He thought they were hybrids. So, individuals, colemanii individuals are commonly to 7 meters tall. That's 21, 22 feet. I have climbed up in these things. I'll show you. 10 feet to collect stem cuttings. They're massive plants. Flowering is usually mid-May. That's something, that's interesting, isn't it? It's after the early spring bloomers and before the 2 or 3 that bloom later. Mid-May. They grow on sandy mesic sites. Mesic means not too wet, not too dry, kind of in the middle. In sandy acidic soil, that's pretty typical. They grow in 8 Alabama counties and 3 Georgia border counties. Where they grow in Georgia is right along the other side of the river. Associates, what they grow with. It's kind of interesting to know that. They grow, the associates include Calmia all over the place. Wherever you see Calmia in these areas, you look for Colemanii. They're in the same family. They also have, in our area, they tend to like, this is kind of my observation, they like to have their roots in moisture, but they like to be a very well-drained, acidic soil. Those are the conditions they like. Kind of a high water table, sandy, acidic, poor soil, either in thickets or under the canopy, the mature canopy of big trees. One curious thing that I see a lot, I don't know how to explain it, there are no young ones allowed. They grow from seed. They're rhizomatous when they're stressed. They'll send out rhizomes, but they just walk around. There aren't any young ones. It's mysterious. I don't know why. All I see is these massive plants that I can climb in and get stem cutting out of. And massive plants, even bigger maybe than Callaway. They've been there 30, 40 years as hybrids. So, Calmia latifolia and Rhododendron alabamense, which is the Alabama azalea, small white flowers with a yellow splotch, immensely fragrant. When they did the DNA typing, they concluded that alabamense is not particularly closely related to Colemanii, but they tend to love to be together. They like the same sites. That's one of the reasons for the trouble, because that looks like an alabamense on steroids. 2 or 3 times the size of alabamense. Flowers which are small. It's white with a splotch. That's Rhododendron Colemanii. In fact, that flower is this plant. It's the big white one with the yellow splotch. I brought this also for your auction. So, the palette of Colemanii is immense. It's one species, but the number of colors are maybe infinite. So you have 4 or 5 basic colors, and then combinations of different hues of them. So just to conclude, there's one right there. Look at that thing. Pink in the rain. It's got a big yellow splotch, which is reminiscent of alabamense, but apparently not closely connected to it. Callaway, 50 years old, probably Mr. Colden. It's pretty special to walk up on something like that in the woods. It's 15 feet tall, flowers 3 inches across. Pure white, not a suggestion of anything but white. Just one little small example of the morphological differences. Look at this petal. Perfectly round.
So Fred, excuse me, is that Colemanii without, what is that we're looking at?
Colemanii.
Okay, so the one you showed previous with the blotch is what?
Colemanii.
So this is a variation.
Everything we'll look at from now on, just differences, forms,
Right.
cultivars if you like. I don't think that's proper either. But
And they're not named them separately?
not yet. Not yet. They will be. You all will, nurserymen will, I'll show you one that a friend of mine who's a nurseryman in Fairhope put a name on it. But it's just unbelievable. I guess it helps to sell them, and I think it helps to separate it too if they have names. But that's a pretty spectacular. Big flowers, purest white, almost like gardenias in color. Another one, Callaway, old plant. The style, stigma style right here is pink. The stamens, by the way, they have 5 stamens, just like a typical azalea. 5 stamens and the pink stigma and style, Callaway. kind of a, I don't know what you'd say that is. It's not a bright yellow, brilliant yellow, but that's in the woods. Yellow one. So, we've got white and pink and yellow so far. Look at that thing. Can't remember whether that's Callaway or in the woods. I think it's probably in the woods. Big flowers, fragrant. Some of them are more fragrant than others. There's variation among the different plants as to how fragrant they are.
And the picture on the screen doesn't really show the intensity of color.
On that monitor, there's so much more
Yeah.
vivid.
Yeah.
Laptop looks better.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, just look at the laptop. I can hold it. This is one that's been named. It's best red. This is the one I climbed up in the tree, up in the thing in the rain to collect specimens for this. This is the most fragrant native azalea I have ever been associated with in my life. It's just unbelievable. I took a little piece of it to show somebody who couldn't get out of the vehicle, just to show them, and it just filled the whole vehicle up with the fragrance from a little small piece of it. And Bobby Green Nursery, many of you know him, a good friend of mine, and of yours too, I expect. He's growing this one, and he's calling it best red. It has the splotch. They don't all have the splotch, by the way. When they do, the splotch can be any color. Any color that they can be. There's another one. That looks like the one that might have the green, the red stigma and style. Otherwise, very similar to the one that caused the trouble, looking like an Alabamensis, but it's obviously not. That's one of my favorites. These two here are the last ones because I'm particularly fond of them myself. Dark yellow with just a hint of the darker splotch. What I was going to read to you, by the way, I'll just tell you what you got to take my word for it. I'll tell you what it said. It said that the DNA analysis of this species, the analysis of the chromosomes, established beyond any doubt that this is in fact not a hybrid. It's not a mutant. This is in fact a brand new species of azalea, and it's tetraploid. So, finally, I guess that's my favorite. Ivory is almost iridescent. Shades of pink and orange and maybe yellow in there. That was taken in the woods. Great big fragrant azalea. Okay, I've been talking about this guy, and I'm going to show you what this guy looks like. This is Wayne Webb, a friend of many of you all, and of mine. His family owns Superior Nursery in Florida. Bobby Green, a nurseryman from Fairhope, who's a camellia expert, among other things, and a good friend. That's the guy. Irascible, kind of grouchy, impatient, brilliant, and he's the one who's causing all the trouble. He's the one who sent the DNA to have the Fothergilla evaluated. He's the one who named and is the authority for rhododendron colemanii. He's also not done yet because he says he's going to start fooling around with rhododendron viscosum / cerulatum. It's kind of a confusing taxon, and he says he's just cocky enough to sort it out. But that's him right there, and this is yours truly.
Yeah, he was actually Fred's major professor in school. And they
He was.
linked up over the...
I used to see him wandering around in the woods, and I thought it was strange. It wasn't strange. I did it myself, but that wasn't strange. But he was always a hobbyist, and he says that he should have, that's what he should have never taught literature in the University of Florida system. He should have been a field botanist. I probably should have been a forester. But anyway, so things go. So that's all I have. I'll be glad to answer any questions. Dad brought some azaleas, by the way. Some of these.
Which one did you bring? Which one now.
Well, you're a man after my heart. You finished ahead of time. 5 minutes for questions, if you would like.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, to recognize Mo and Fred for coming today and sharing that with us and driving 6 hours to get here. So
Don't forget the 6 hours back.
He can drive for you, maybe.
That's right.
Which cultivator, is that one of Bobby's there? Is that big red, with that one you brought?
Yeah.
That's what we sell.
Yeah, it is.
That's what it
That's right.
Best
is.
red.
Best red.
It kind of forecloses any possibility of improvement on it, doesn't it?
I thought you said that was the white with the yellow. That's the big red right there? The one you brought.
Oh, this one here, the one I brought is the one that's white with the big splotch of yellow.
Okay, so that's not the big red.
Right, this is not best red. Venus is white. This is the one that sort of caused the trouble and confused people into thinking that maybe it was an Alabamense in a way, because it looks like a big old Alabamense on steroids. Fragrance, I can't remember.
I'm sure.
I'm sure it has some fragrance, but how much? Oh. Anything else? Well, I'll stand down and thank you.